All right, we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Q&A about generators, small engines, or whatever you got, really. We got a couple guys in the basement. The first one I'll bring up, everybody knows, Mr. Generator, Jim Condon. Hello, Jim. How are you?
Good, thanks. How you doing, Ken?
Not too bad. And then along with him, the other, well, actually, I don't want to say generator guy, the all-around, I'm going to say electronics guy, Mr. Gary Bernacki. Hello, Gary.
Hey, guys.
So this was sort of a spur of the moment. The three of us have been talking. We got to do another live, and we never usually get around to planning anything. So finally today, I just said the hell with it. I'm going to put something out there, and if you guys advertise on your stations, I see there were a few hits on the stations where people were interested. I got about 150 views on mine, and we'll see who shows up tonight. But at this point, if anyone wants to ask a question. That's fine. I know, Jim, you picked up a diesel generator from a customer, so that ought to be interesting. Is that something?
Yep.
You said you're going to keep it, right, eventually? Or
Well, I usually don't keep the things I fix. So unless it's a really good low THD machine, I won't even consider it. So this one, I'm actually putting a Ryobi powerhead on it, which is not low THD, but the one that's on there, brand new, immediately burned up the first time it started. So
but it's actually, not is it an inverter or
no, it's just a traditional generator powered by a 10-horse diesel.
How would you get low THD though out of a non-inverter though? I mean, is it what's the characteristic that would give you that in a traditional generator?
That is a great question, because looking at them, there are some visible differences. I think part of it is the size. Part of it's the material it's made out of. And I've seen some of the nicer ones, the rotor actually has like a twist in it.
Yep. Yeah, it looks like a barrel of a gun.
Yeah, exactly. Someone wrote to me once saying, how do I straighten it? Because they thought it twisted under stress. And I'm like, no, that's good. Leave it alone.
It's about the spacing of the laminations, the type of wire they're using. It's actually copper wire and not a copper-clad aluminum wire.
Yeah.
The spacing and the design of the rotor is really where the cost savings is put in there at the sacrifice of high THD. And I've seen there's some of the Duramax and some of the Champions now even are reporting under 5% THD, but you're paying for it basically. You're paying for that more expensive power head.
You are, yeah. And that's, I'd say like 95% of the ones I get, they are not low THD. And, some of them are quite expensive, like $1,000. But if you want something that's 5%, it's probably twice that price.
Yeah.
I was watching a video the other day, electricians and things like home electricians, and the guy opened up the breaker box. And then I think, Jim, I told you about this. We were talking about it at dinner the other night. And Gary, you're going to know the answer right away. At the bottom of his breaker box was two big capacitors. What was he trying to do with that? Gary, you could tell right off the bat. What is that called when you try and condition or do so? What are you trying to do?
Well, if like large capacitors, like
almost like big startup caps, big ones.
Usually it's usually not to get rid of THD. I mean, there's just the equipment required to get rid of THD at the portable generator level or even at your utility box. You would need huge inductors and capacitors to do it. He's probably putting those capacitors, and I wouldn't know without looking at it, but usually for surge protection.
Oh, okay. Because I thought the guy in the video thought that he was trying to do it on a branch circuit to protect something.
No.
Seems
kind of hodgepodge to me. I've never seen a large capacitor in there on a branch circuit breaker. I mean, there's a large start run capacitor on your central air system, for example.
Well, and mine not failed. I think it's going to fail. I have to replace it. Mine's 30 years old. Okay. And the other, what was it, 3-4 weeks ago?
Yeah.
My wife calls me up. It's 80 degrees in here, and it was like 100-degree day. And I'm like, and it was, it was blowing warm air out, so I shut it off.
Yep.
And I call up my best friend, who's a former HVAC guy, and we're talking. He goes, "Yeah, shut it off for a few minutes." I run upstairs, in the attic. I take out the air bear. There's no ice on the coil, so I know the refrigerant's good. I said, okay. Yep. And He says, "We'll start it up." So we started it up, and it's been fine ever since. So I'm
Yeah,
thinking,
usually a reset.
but
There's
then my wife said to me though the next day, "Yeah, that box outside." I'm like, "The compressor?"
yeah,
Yeah, he goes, "It was humming, but the fan wasn't turning."
capacitor's
Mhm.
gone. Yep.
So that's So I've got a what do I just look at the microfarad rating and just
Yeah,
Yep.
that's you see usually a fan, Herm,
wait?
and
Am I saying
common.
it right? Micro mute or
Microfarad.
It's
You got it.
yeah.
I've
Yep.
gotten so much hate mail about when I say microfarad versus what's the other term of the farad? Picofarad, microfarad, whatever.
Microfarad, picofarad. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
because
those are the most common
well, the
ratings that
mu when you
you.
see mu, that's micro, right?
Yeah,
Mu.
mu. Yeah,
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
yep.
All right.
But
I gotta look at that. I want to see. I didn't take it apart yet, but I gotta see if it's swollen.
yeah, if it's swollen, usually, or you can just use.
You
just
said it was 30 years old?
Yeah.
I'm
This
so,
our there was
That's
put in
amazing. Yeah, you
Jessica.
should get a new one. Although it
Jessica,
won't last 30 years, I guarantee you that.
yeah,
no,
Jessica was born
they
in
usually go that long.
'93. We installed it in the winter of '90. I got a good
We'll find
deal.
the picture.
We put the central air in the winter of '94. I'll never forget that. So it's 30 years. Yeah.
Well, and I just I did it as preventative maintenance. I changed out my start run capacitor. Oh, here we go. There's the perfect picture.
They're not that expensive, right?
No, they're about 45. Well,
Oh,
wait a
man.
minute.
Oh,
What do you
Hold
got?
on.
Green screen? You got
Let
green
me stop here. Let me stop my. Just don't pardon the mess, guys. I don't. I usually don't like. I
Tibo
my
3 is
my
that
stack is
oh
next to me
yeah, it's
here.
a complete mess.
what
All right.
is a for is that your start capacitor in
Yeah.
your
So
handbook?
that's the old one. It started to bubble,
Yeah.
and here's the comparison.
Ah.
That's
So
impressive that you just had that ready on your phone.
yeah, I had it. I have everything organized. So small engine, home brewing, music gear. So it's all ready to
Now,
go.
did you have it just in case? Or
I did it. Because I figured that after 20 years, so my house is a 2004 build, so
yeah,
it's got an old R22 system. That's the refrigerant, and they've
yeah.
been trying to get rid of it for a long time. Now they're trying to get rid of R410. I know a little bit more about HVAC than I should, but long story short, I replaced it as preventative maintenance, and it's been fine ever since. But EWC Controls, I've been beta testing one of their
Mm.
HVAC controller boards, and it's got, and probably what happened to you there, Ken, was that there is a lockout delay for the outside compressor, so you don't short cycle. It's basically an anti-short cycle,
Mhm.
and sometimes that module will fail. Like if you turn on your air conditioning and then turn it off, if you try to turn it back on quickly after, the make before break or delay on relay will actually wait a full 5 minutes usually. I set mine adjusting it to, I don't know, like 7 minutes, just for
Oh,
the sake that I want it to wait. It's not that hypercritical, but it allows
yeah.
the compressor pressures to equalize. So it's not as hard of a startup. I don't have a Microair soft start in there, although
Yeah.
when that system does go, that's something I will invest in.
Right. So the question here, what is a 4-pole power head?
Well, we have most of the portable generators are 2-pole. Just you have a north and south pole. It's basically a spinning inductor or spinning electromagnet. A 4-pole is basically two. But instead of running at 3,600 RPMs to get your 60 hertz, now you're running at 1,800 RPMs
Oh,
in order to get your 60
Yeah.
hertz, and that's where you're going to find a lot of multi-cylinder diesel engines powering those 4-pole rotor power heads, and they're usually capacitor excited brushless, just for the sake of you know just it's a lot less maintenance to have to go and instead of replacing brushes all the time,
Yep.
and you see those in the
yeah.
large kilowatt range.
A lot of RVs too. They are 2-pole, but they
Wait,
are
aren't just some of the Onins
1800.
that lower RPM?
They're
Yeah, it's
usually
because
belt
they're a
driven
belt driven with
Oh, I got
pulleys,
you.
with
so
the
you can
reduction.
change the ratio.
So you're running at the peak torque of the engine, so running at
Yeah.
about 2,800 RPMs
Oh,
versus 3,600 RPMs. But
Yeah.
the rotor's spinning at 3,600 RPMs, but the engine is not.
wow.
That's why they're not rated at high wattage,
Yeah.
but they're extremely quiet, and yeah.
Well, talking about RPM and stuff too, I know we've spoken a few times about contractors using the ones with the idle down feature because they're not using the equipment
Right.
constantly.
Yeah.
Right.
I guess the question would be though, if I have something plugged in with that idle down feature and I go to hit let's say it's a jackhammer and I go to hit
Yeah.
it that's not affecting anything by starting out at an idle and then ramping up to what it's supposed to be? That doesn't affect it.
Something like that, probably not. But the problem is too, those circuits aren't super sensitive, so you need at least 100 watts, I'd say.
Yeah,
it really depends. Yeah, and if you don't have it, you could be running stuff, you know, on just 45 hertz, you know, maybe 80 watts or 80 volts, and it's not great. I mean, if you're connected to your house, just run it at full speed.
Yeah, because a lot of times those circuits cannot handle the lower 48 to 50 hertz and maybe 95 volts. And when something that's drawing more than an amp will turn on, then it's got to ramp up, and that voltage regulator's got to go and put more power into the field in order to get that voltage back up. That's where your surges and spikes happen and things go snap, crackle, pop. So if you have one of those low idle features like on a construction site generator, keep it off. Run the engine at constant full speed there.
If you're cooling the engine too. I mean,
well, that's it. You know, the fan is also it was meant as a fuel saving feature, and you don't want that for if anything is connected to your house. You don't want that.
All right, Jim, here we go. They're asking how your family puts up with you doing all this stuff.
Yeah, actually, I mean, my wife has been very good. I thought for sure there'd be a problem because we used to be able to park our cars in here, and we can't anymore. I mean, we have a lift table.
A car in your garage, Jim.
We have a lift table in one bay. We have a tractor in another, and just all kinds of crap just spread around. So she's been very good about it, especially after I monetized. I think she saw.
I was going to say, now you can say, honey, do you need money to shopping?
Yeah. No, she's actually being very hopeful and starting to do the books. She's a CPA, so she's getting into it. Yep.
That's good. Yeah, cool.
And as far as time goes, it's at night. This is when I work now. So I'm not getting anything done tonight.
Yeah, let's go through the comments here, Bob Ross. I'm trying to look for that picture we did of you, Jim.
It's on our text message.
It's on my community tab. That's right. It's on my community tab.
Everyone's saying hello. Randy's my air conditioner buddy.
Yep.
He's always on.
It's an ICM relay, ICM brand. I put one on. I put one on my system too, just because there wasn't one. And believe me, I think that's probably one of the most very critical components of your air conditioning system. You do not want to be short cycling anything.
No.
What about your lift table, Jim? You know what it is?
There is no branding on it. I theorize it's a clone of a Redline. So if you Google Redline lift, they have a whole bunch. And they have one that looks just like this, except I don't know if that's a Redline. It might be something else.
What was the backstory on that, Jim? You got a good deal on that, didn't you?
A subscriber had it in his garage, and he was not using it. It was just sitting there for years. So he contacted me and offered it up to me. So the only catch was I had to drive a couple states to get it, which was well worth the drive.
I want subscribers like that, I tell you. All right, what else we got here? Hey, Mr. Clemens on. Hello, John. What's he got?
Sycamore. An XL. It sounds like a Generac to me.
3500 though. That's small.
They do. Yeah, there is an XL 3500 Generac. It's an old model from the early 2000s.
What should he check first?
I'm going to have to Google what that looks like. I don't even know who makes it.
Well, all I know is what I've learned from you guys over the years, too, is if I have something that's not making power, I try and excite it first to see if it's lost residual magnetism. I mean, I don't know.
You can, but honestly, if it's not making power, it's almost always a problem. So if you excite it, it might power up.
Yeah,
but then it's going to be followed by smoke and fire, most likely.
Yeah. But usually, you say if you're making voltage, but either not enough or whatever, that's when you check for the residual in the magnets, or what?
No. I mean, I would. I mean, the best way to do it is with the multimeter and with your eyes. Take that uncover off, look at it, see if it's burnt to a crisp. In which case, you know right away what the problem is. But if it looks okay, then you need to test it. Like actually the one I'm working on right now, I took the uncover off. It looked great, but the multimeter said it was garbage. So I took it off. And on the back side, it was all crispy. it
Oh,
had
yeah.
shorted out.
Okay. John, send a picture to me, John. I'll post it up here.
Yeah, usually check the AVR first.
Yep, if it has one. Right.
Microair. See, someone knew about that. Okay.
Uh,
Yeah, and that I have seen drastic changes from that. There's
You're talking the soft start versus the starter cap?
well, yeah, the starter cap is what's referred to as a hard start. It
Yeah,
allows
we put SCRs on our motors at work, so we
right. So
avoid the
the Microair device is essentially that, but it's got a microprocessor on it that will control the ramp up of current. So
okay.
instead of say 74 or sometimes even on the higher pressure ones of the R410As, you're
Hmm.
getting 130, 140 amps and
Wow.
for a quick start. Of course, it's going to get back down to like 16 running amps at
Hmm.
240 volts, but that initial surge is what a lot of generators can't do. So if it brings
Yeah.
it down to 20, yeah, you won't even hear it actually
Yeah,
start up.
my light's
Yeah.
dim every time mine kicks
Yeah,
in.
well, and that's
Mine
where
too.
you need
They flicker.
a soft start like that is very helpful too.
But
Yeah.
is that something, Gary, that you would replace where the cap is now,
You
or
leave the cap in there, and it's just a couple wires difference. And there's a lot of guys there's a Facebook group. There's a lot of guys. Hey, everyone down in Texas, hello. You guys on that Facebook group, I'll have to see if I can link into it. But
Hmm.
Microair actually is been sending units to people down in that area to
Mhm.
test and beta test and make sure everything works properly.
Yeah.
And they have videos online that basically show how to do it. You got to put some crimp wires and some butt connectors, but other than that, it takes maybe 5 or 6 startup cycles for the computer to learn how your system runs, and it'll basically take that startup amperage and bring it down to very, very little. And it
Okay.
actually saves the wear and tear on your central air system. The only thing is that on some of them, like some of the newer ones, because R410A is a higher pressure than say R22, now we're getting to the newer refrigerant called R32, which is actually considered flammable. That's another story.
Is
But
that the one
Is that propane?
is that the one that can replace 22, old 22?
no, it cannot.
There's one that someone told me about. I forget what the name of it is, but it's
The lubricant
compatible
is
with.
different. The lubricant is different within the
Yeah.
refrigerant, but R32 is a derivative of propane, so it is flammable. And now they're actually building, and I know this because EWC Controls sent me their board to beta test, and it actually has provisions for the new R32 refrigerant because if it detects a leak, well, it's going to shut down the whole system because if you don't want that stuff leaking into your house, and then you got yourself kind of a problem there.
Yeah.
But no, the Microair, that is definitely something on my list to do. It's not that terrible hard to do. It's just it's a very expensive unit. It's almost $400 for the unit alone. And if
Yeah.
you don't know how to put it in, then you have to pay an HVAC technician to put it in, which could be a couple hundred more. It's a decent investment, but it's a buy once, cry once investment. The way I look at it, anyway.
Cool. All right, let's see what else we got here. John, did you send me something, John? I thought I saw something on my phone. Hold on. I think Clem sent me something. Oh yeah, here we go. Hold on. Here's a picture of Mr. Clem's. Let's see. Oop.
That kind of looks like a Honda clone.
Yep. It's hard, a
So-
little blurry.
Yeah, although the generator, it's hard to tell from the bell housing if that's a standard. But if it's not making power, I mean, I would definitely find out if it has a capacitor or an AVR. Like that's
Yeah, what's
You
the
know.
end look like, John? The end on the other side.
Yep.
Let me get rid of
because
that.
there's not a lot you can do other than that, or the brushes. If it's not one of those things, then you probably need a new generator.
And can you even get parts for something that old? That's the other part. That's the other problem.
Use the choke to try and drink. Oh, what? Just to keep it running for that extra few seconds? I mean, I don't think it's going to hurt anything. A 4-stroke engine, you're not really going to melt anything if you go lean for a few seconds.
Drain the bowl. Yeah, I only turn the choke on partially when it starts to surge, so it's already running lean.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of bringing it back to where it should be.
Well, it's like people trying to suck all the juice they can out of the carburetor, so they'll choke it for the last 30 seconds or whatever.
Yeah, that's what I do. And if it has a drain, I usually pull the drain too.
Yep.
But there's a lot that don't have a drain, so you really have to run it dry. And actually, once it stalls, I'll walk away, and maybe 5 minutes later, I'll put the choke back on, pull it again, and it'll start back up for another 5 seconds. So I'll keep doing that until it's dry, like completely dry.
Some of the designs of the carburetors, the main jet actually leaves a little gap at the bottom of the bowl, and that becomes the problem because you'll never get that out because it can't pull that up into the main jet. So that's going to sit there, and even with the drain, you almost have to leave the drain open for like 10-15 minutes for it to evaporate away. But it's kind of a double-edged sword if you have that little gap there. But
that's weird. I was talking about the soft start here. On mine, just with the capacitor, they both got simultaneous.
On the same, but the Microair and other soft start is because it's two capacitors in one unit. The picture I showed you guys.
But the big load is the compressor.
Yeah, the larger microfarad is for the compressor. The smaller one is for the fan. So what Microair, well, at least that unit will do, is that it will start the fan up, and then once that fan gets up to speed, because there's a little bit of an inductive kick. Think of the electric motors is a bunch of windings, right? There's no magnetic field when it first starts. That's what that hard start capacitor is for, because that magnetic field, it's got to build, and there's going to be that huge kick before it actually starts.
Yeah, cool. All right, Jim, someone's looking for what you really do.
My day job. I wear many hats, but I manage a department in IT. I also program and project manage.
All usable skills in this stuff, right?
Or a good way to escape it.
Yeah, that too, yes.
Oh, yeah, 51 watching. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
But you seen any generators currently, Gare? Anything coming in?
Well, the one behind me here actually finally just sold. They were actually using it to drain out their swamp, actually. They had a big pump that they needed to power it for, because I guess they maintain it for the town, but they just wanted to pick it up. It finally sold after 2 or 3 years since I did that video.
It's been a bad year for selling stuff.
It's been a bad year for selling everything. I mean, there's with the recession and the stock market crashing, it's going to be even worse. But no, I mean, I'm supposed to see another generator. It's a Predator generator. I think it's either the 3500 or it's the 8000 watt, not the inverter one. Got a lot of views on that Predator generator. But I actually just found out from the food truck that it failed on him because the inverter unit failed on the Predator 7600 watt it's labeled as 7600 watt running 9600. It's the largest one. What winds up happening is because those inverters are running hard all the time and there's a miswiring issue on one of the legs, so it puts more load on one leg than the other. The inverter unit, on hot days, it actually starts to falter and go into overload. But yeah, I was supposed to see that here in a couple weeks, but we'll see what happens. Because the inverter unit's not that terribly expensive for that. It's like $450, but it's also a very big chunk of the $2,300 that thing sells for new.
Sure. Missing screws, Jim. I don't know. I've used cardboard. It depends. I mean, you start to work on things enough.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if I'm not familiar with it, then I'll put the screws back where they go, or I'll put, if it's the carburetor and the airbox, I'll put that stuff together with the bolts. So at least I know those screws go with that part of the machine, or I just put it right back where they came from. But a lot of them, I know where they go because I've taken them apart. I'm familiar with them.
Yeah, the only ones that get me sometimes are the end plates, where you may have 3 different lengths of screws.
Yeah.
That's all.
I laughed when I read this comment because the Mconies on the Subaru engines, they are painful. They surge. I'd say 50% of them surge without a load. With a load, they run fine, but without a load, they surge. And I've tried drilling the pilot jet, but I find almost half the time I do that, the drill bit will break in that pilot jet. For whatever reason, it's just not conducive to drilling. So Unfortunately, the only thing I can say, and actually the thing that I've found, I mean, I have multiple carburetors. I can take one that's surging on one engine, put it in a bin, and then when I get another generator that's surging, I take the one out that was surging on the other engine, bolt it on this engine, and it runs fine. Like it's just a very
Inconsistent.
It is very inconsistent. But if you want one that doesn't surge and runs well, I think it's Stens that makes an aftermarket one. It's expensive.
You're talking a Mconies clone?
It is a Mconies clone made by Stens for the Subaru engine, and it actually runs very well. But the clone Subaru Mconies clones, those are garbage. They run the engine very rich. It won't surge, but it's going to have black smoke coming out of it. It's pretty bad.
You have to decarbonize the head after so many hours for that. At least it's not the opposite.
Yes.
I've never heard of this. MEPS.
The military surplus ones.
Yeah. Surplus diesel generator. I thought about any MEP. I've never worked on them, but diesel, definitely a thumbs up.
Yeah, and the MEPs are built extremely well. There used to be an old forum, I don't know if they're still doing it, called the Steel Soldiers Forum, where a guy actually took two MEP 5Ks and paralleled them together using a poor man's phase indicator.
You sent me that link.
Yeah.
And I still want to do that, but I want to get generators without AVRs, closely matched, and then preferably ones I didn't spend a lot of money on in case things.
I wonder if small engine Mike's ever worked on something like that.
It is possible to do that. It is really, I mean, when we talk about paralleling generators, I don't want to get too far on a tangent there, but the inverter generators make it so easy because the microcontroller runs that. You know, you start up one, you connect the other when it's off, start that one up, and then they're in sync. But you try to do it with two spinning generators, it's got to be exactly in phase. Otherwise, you're going to pop the breaker or worse, blow something up. Or, you know, it is possible to do, you know, and I've always thought of doing it with those little 2-cycle, you know, 800-watt jobbies from Predator there, just to see if it would actually work.
Yeah.
That's probably
someday I'll do that. That'll be a good video when I blow up 2 generators.
Oh yeah, you'll get hundreds of thousands of views.
Oh yeah, it'll be great. But if it works too, that would be cool.
You talk about blowing up something. Our friend in Australia, Tom, Vintage Small Engine Repair, said to me the other day, he's working on a generator, and he goes, "What is it that I'm not supposed to do that may make it catch fire?" And I'm like, "Catch fire?
Short out?
Well,
overload it?"
I thought of was the suicide cord, not doing something correctly.
Oh.
What would actually cause a small engine generator to catch fire? Stella answered him saying, "Don't fuel it while it's running or while it's hot." But I mean, anything wiring wise that would cause a fire?
Short circuit,
heat, a lot of current.
Yeah,
any of that stuff will be.
It's like his first generator he's working on. He's getting all nervous.
Just any ignition source or source of heat.
Yeah.
All right, dual start 13,000 watt. What was he saying? How often? Oh yeah, that's a weird one. Rule of thumb on brushes. I mean, brushes generally last a long time.
They do. I've only had two generators out of all the ones I've worked on that had brushes that needed to be replaced. I mean, sometimes they break. You know, sometimes the plastic housing melts down if it's arcing, but the actual brushes last a long time. And these two I picked up from a contractor, so he was probably running it thousands of hours, and the brushes were literally worn down right to the plastic holder. I mean,
Jim, were those ones that have like the diode in the top of them and all that, or what is?
No, these were just the typical Honda clone ones. They were just brushes,
just carbon brushes.
Can't see it. Actually, no, I put it away. I had some out last night.
I have it here. So let's see here.
Hold on.
Yeah, those are the ones.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, so those are the standard ones. You're talking about the one that has the white plastic with the bridge
rectifier. The storm responder.
The brush looked good, but it had a bad diode.
Right. Most of the time, you'd have to look. I would estimate they need to be checked every 100 to 150 hours because it's just one of those things that it is a wearable item. You have to at least check them. But can't imagine. I've never seen them worn down so bad to where they have to be replaced, except, you know, like you said, when it's arcing. But if it's arcing, it's usually because there's a short in the rotor or the brushes are misaligned with the slip rings. And we've seen that happen on your channel as well.
Yeah, and that's actually, I'm having that issue with this one behind me. I put
Right.
on a Honda clone generator onto it. It seems to be the correct one.
Yep.
But the brush alignment, half the brush was on the slip ring and half wasn't.
Right.
So now I'm second guessing myself. I'm like, is that not the right tapered shaft? Did I put the wrong generator on there? But I'm, you know, it happens in manufacturing. Those slip
It does.
rings, I think, are pressed in place.
They are.
And if the guy working just presses them on a little too far,
Yeah.
then the alignment's
Well,
off.
in your video, right, you showed it was like a little bit canted.
Yeah. Sometimes,
Yeah.
like, if you can actually correct, like, so for, there's a video that I did. I'll link to it. But the one time where the brushes, if they're too far forward, you can add washers to bring them back to make them sit on top of the slip rings correctly. But if it's the opposite, where it's not far in enough, where the slip rings are pushed too far back towards the engine, for example, then yeah, exactly. Then you can't do anything about that.
Oh,
So
wow.
that's
See,
toward the engine. So I
Correct.
did add 3 washers. It brought it 3 millimeters
Yeah.
back. So they're on the slip rings. They're not centered, but they're at least on the slip rings
You
completely.
can't do that for very long, though. That's definitely gonna, because what's gonna happen is it's gonna build up current on the part that it's actually connecting with. Carbon is a resistor
Right.
already, so if you're putting even more resistance because there's not much of contact surface, that's gonna arc and burn. So that's not
Right.
gonna work.
They have to be on the slip rings. So they're on the slip rings now, but you're kind of limited too because the Honda clones, they only have 1 screw and the other side's a locating pin. So you can only bring it out so far.
So far, exactly.
Before it comes off the locating pin. So I was actually considering drilling it out and tapping it if it gets to that point, because there's no other way to correct that alignment.
But a lot of people don't check that, and that's something it's very interesting when you have those kinds of failures. Sometimes they're not even covered by warranty, because how do you prove it?
Hey, what's this here? How would you put a ground onto a hot leg?
Ooh, yeah, that's
wired off ground.
Switch to one of the hot legs. Jeez,
Like a hot leg on the outlet or something, maybe?
Yeah, that's fat finger, that one. Wow.
Yeah.
That's not good. I mean, at the worst case scenario, the breaker would just trip almost immediately.
Yeah.
Well, it would if it was bonded, but if it's not bonded, what would happen?
Well, if it's not bonded, there wouldn't be any path back to the frame. But as soon as you connected something to it that's bonded back at the panel, it's going to trip that load side of the circuit breaker almost immediately and possibly burn something. But
here's a good question: what happens when you run out of fuel? What can you?
There's so many. Where do you want to take that one, James?
Sure, I'll take the first stab, because a lot of people are commenting like, "You're shutting it down with a light plugged into it." Yeah. I'm just like, well,
heavy loads are.
You're going to damage it, and it's like, well, to be honest.
Yeah, when you say damage, though, you mean lose the residual magnetism because it's
no.
Yes, if it's a generator that can lose magnetism, but the real reason you shouldn't shut it down is because of what you're going to damage what's connected to it. It sends power surges. So if you remember a couple months ago, a generator unexpectedly shut down. It sent surges, and it actually cooked my oscilloscope because.
Well, wait, but it's sending the surges while it's shutting down, or when you.
Well, what happens is the AVR will try to go to full power,
and just
it'll go to full power, and then if the generator suddenly gets up to speed and then goes down and then up to speed, the AVR is trying to react, and it's
can't react fast enough.
It's doing things that it shouldn't do. So
so the rule of thumb is shut everything off, shut it down, fuel it, and then turn it back.
Well, it's also bad for the engine. You want to run it without a load to let the engine cool down.
Yeah.
If you can.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the AVRs cannot react fast enough, and that's a lot of the issue right there. So you never want to shut down. I mean, when you shut off with a small incandescent bulb, it's going to be very inconsequential to the AVR because they're overbuilt for their full rated capacity of the generator. But like you said, the decaying voltage and the decaying speed as it's shutting down, that AVR is trying like hell to keep that voltage stable in its set range, and that's when the lower the voltage, the higher the current goes, and that's when things start to burn.
Have you seen that, guys, where there's bunch of green wires and some are hot and some are not?
The colors they use often don't make a whole lot of sense, so
green
it wouldn't surprise me. Green is supposed to be ground, right? But Yeah, they just pick. Sometimes it's European colors inside. Sometimes it's just whatever wire they have laying around.
Yeah, Chinesium.
Yep.
You guys use the alkylate fuel at all for stuff like this that sits?
For snowblowers, yes. Generators, if the I will actually drain it out. I'll just drain it out. But for most of the time, but because I'm returning them back to the customers, I do put a little bit of that alkylate can fuel in there just so I can prove to the customer that it's running correctly. And
Yeah.
again, the worst case scenario with that fuel is it won't leave the residue. Some of the volatile components of that fuel will evaporate away, sure. So it may not start immediately. Might have to give it a little bit more choke, but it will start. It will not be a clog. It won't clog the carburetor, basically. But I usually just put it as a separate cost for a little bit of that alkylate fuel because it is costly.
It is, and that's the thing too. Even ethanol-free fuel, they don't sell near me. So when I do get it, it's like a 45-minute drive to an hour to get it, and then I only use it on things that are like vintage, that have metal tanks that are not replaceable. And then everything else, I'll run off the test tank just because I don't want to introduce crap fuel into the tank, which sometimes bites me because when I actually go to sell it, that's when I put fuel in it when they're on their way, and then I see, oh, the fuel valve's leaking, or something I didn't test, and it's like, okay, so I'm frantically trying to fix a leak.
Cool.
Yeah,
Jim, I know you've delved into a lot more than generators lately. Anything old that you got coming up?
I'll show you, but don't tell anyone.
Yeah, there's only 51 people watching. So
can you still hear me?
Yep.
I just realized I don't even have the microphone on my shirt, so I'm surprised.
No, that's fine.
Gary will know what this is.
Oh, you told me about that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
That is a 1964 Honda generator, the first one unofficially that Honda ever made. It's not even their official first generator.
And how many watt? How many watt was it?
Okay, it's take a guess.
300 watts.
No, I
way
thought it was
way off
or something.
It's 40 watts.
Oh my god!
And it's actually
because we were talking.
Wait, it gets better.
They used to call them light plants because that's about all they did.
It's 40 watts, but it's 20 watts on each plug. There's actually a special adapter you can get to run it in parallel to get the full 40 watts. And guess what the hertz are?
Is it
200 hertz?
Wow. Oh, that's like an airplane.
It was they developed it for Sony. Sony came out with a miniature TV, and they wanted a miniature power source. So that was Honda's first generator. And it was just to power that TV, but it does power light bulbs, like small light bulbs.
Interesting. Yes.
Yeah. I'm actually missing a part for it. So I'm ruining the video for anyone who's listening right now, but I'm missing a part for it. Someone's trying to machine a part for it, but we don't even know what the part looks like.
Yeah.
Like there's no pictures. I can't get it.
It's funny when you talk about that frequency though, Jim, I'm thinking about, because I work in the aircraft industry.
Usually 400 hertz.
Yeah, aircrafts are between 360 and 800.
Yep. Wow.
Yeah. Interesting.
That is pretty cool, actually.
Yeah.
It is a very cool generator. Useless, but it's beautiful. Like the way it's just designed and put together, it's like a pleasure to work on.
Was that a donation, Jim? What was that?
Yeah, actually a subscriber. The story was, it was given to the subscriber's dad in non-running condition, probably 30 or 40 years ago. It never ran. His father passed away. He inherited it. He's had it for 20 years in non-running condition. So it's been probably 30 years or more since it ran.
Now, 2-stroke or 4-stroke?
4-stroke.
Oh, wow.
It takes like a couple tablespoons of oil. It's crazy.
That would be cool for a couple of
the engineering that they did to make that. It's very interesting. And there used to be a guy on smokestack.com. His name was Robert at Honda, but I think he retired because he used to be able to get access to a lot of these archives from the 60s and 70s from Honda, just to get information on how to fix some of these things. Because obviously after, all these years, all these decades, really, that design is probably obviously obsolete at this point.
It is, and the parts, I can't get or find a single part used, new, nothing. Like
What are you
if you
actually missing, Jim? What are you actually missing?
the pilot needle.
Oh, that's right. You were saying you were trying to find
yeah.
carburetors that were the same. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure the think
That's
tank
why I
or the
told you,
community will have something for you.
call Vevor, get the free lathe, and make your own.
Well, that would take a while since I've never used a lathe, but that's someone who actually
If
has
you
a
can make
machine shop
Jim,
is working on it right now.
If you can make a drawing, I'll make you one. But tell me, I need the sizes.
I can tell you. I don't even know what it looks like. It looks like a needle.
No, but I'm saying, is it metric? It has to be metric thread.
Oh, it is metric. I did find a needle that fitted actually from a 16-horse Nicky carb for a Brigsby twin. It fits, but it's not long enough.
Okay.
So
I would
it needs to be longer.
Raise on a tip and go for it. You know? Silver solder, a nice tip on it. You know.
Yeah. Well, but it's a big, huge vacuum leak. We could put it. I was gonna 3D print something.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, with my luck, I'll screw it in. The plastic will break off, and then what? You know, I can't get a new carburetor. So that carburetor's complete, but it's missing one part. Like someone probably 40 years ago tried to get it running. They took the needle out. Yeah. They just never put it back.
Yeah, because like I said, if you got something similar, seriously, I can make just about anything. So I've got ways to do it.
I can give you someone's working on it right now. So he's actually working on it pretty diligent. He might actually make a video on it too.
Cool.
So we'll see.
Local guy?
Not too local, no. He's in Virginia.
What's this here? Oh, favorite question, THD.
What? There's an expensive, affordable way to determine THD. The meter that I use is the cheapest thing you can use.
And what's that?
It's probably about 300. You can probably find it for more or a little less.
Yeah.
But THD meters are usually like 2,000 plus. So this thing, when I found it, it was
I'll go grab mine so you can see what he's talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even buy it. I'm borrowing it from someone, but it's worth every penny because I can't find one any more affordable than that. I mean, potentially on eBay if you found like an old model, but still they'd probably be half the cost, maybe.
All right, so let's see. As soon as I saw yours, James, I picked up mine. The only difference is the voltage rating. So I'll just do it in front of me. This is an Amp Probe Auto Nav AC/DC 54. You have the 52. And it's got THD here. And let's see here. Well,
how much was that, Gary?
This was like 340, 330, something like that.
Yep.
So they're not cheap, but this is they do show the total harmonic distortion. Yeah. You can see some of all the odd and even harmonics on the screen for whatever it tells you, but the real the best tool to have if you really want to measure, the frequency range is to have a regular oscilloscope. But
so Gary, just for the hell of it, throw it on a wire that's near you.
Sure.
Just to see.
I'm actually
5% or less, right?
Yeah. So I'll measure my utility while I'm getting this here because I'm part of my my base stack is right next to me. I have a gig tomorrow, so it's a.
I figured you had to have some voltage next to your head.
I do, but
it's the house.
The house, yeah. I'm 1,000 feet away from a substation, so the THD is going to probably be very, very low. But NEC spec won't let it go above 6.
And how do the power companies regulate that?
It's usually in order to control harmonic distortion, they have what are called large load and line reactors. They're essentially very large inductors and capacitor combination devices, extremely large, like hundreds of pounds. And all they basically do, they provide a high resistance to any frequency or any voltage above 60 hertz, which is what you want. You don't want 120. You don't want.
Are you talking like ferrite chokes and coils, or
big inductor capacitors? Basically, creates an RC filter, a low pass filter, they call it, and that will basically cut out all that harmonic distortion or voltages at higher frequencies that you don't want. But I say to people all the time, because that question gets asked in the groups and on the forums, how do I go and mitigate THD on a high THD generator? You can't. It's not, you would need such a large inductor capacitor combination to do that, that by the time you factor in the cost of building something that big, it's just not worth it.
Just buy an inverter.
Exactly. But people still ask the question anyway, and I find it funny.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
All right, let's see here. So, I just got a little extension cord here. You know, nothing, nothing crazy. If you want to see what utility power is, and just set it to the right. There we go.
There we go. 3.1.
What do you got, Jim? 2.1. Oh wow, that's your house current.
Yeah, house THD.
Hold on, guys. Let me just get a good connection. All right, here's mine.
Wow.
Holy cow.
Like I said, I'm 1,000 feet away from the substation, so it's going to be extremely clean.
Yeah. Peter's asking about an EU 2000 versus a 2200. One uses a lot more fuel. One's rough.
The 2000 is an older model. I don't think they make anymore. They just make the 2200 now.
Yeah. So with the older one, the 2000, that's what, like an 80 cc?
Yes, just like the Yamaha EF 2000 IS. It's an 80 cc.
What's the new one? 100?
I think it's a little bit bigger, like 100 or 105, something like that.
Okay.
So higher displacement's going to burn more fuel.
Yeah, you say it runs a little rough, though, a little unstable.
Stable is snake oil. Stop using snake oil. Stable does not solve the main problem of storage with generators and fuel in general. Stable, any stable that you buy, you have ethanol and gasoline blended together. E10, 10% ethanol, 90% gasoline. The stabilizers will prevent phase separation from those two chemicals from separating from each other, kind of like oil and water. But what it will not do, and this is the biggest problem, ethanol is from fermented corn. It's hydrophilic, meaning it wants to absorb moisture in the air. That stabilizer is not going to stop that. You leave it in there long enough, it will do it eventually, especially if it's not sealed properly.
Yeah.
And with the external vents that carburetors have so that they don't create a vacuum, it will go bad on you. So stabilizer is worthless.
It also makes gel, or is that the
My
ethanol?
customers think it's a rejuvenator. It's not.
It's not. They just want you to buy more of the crap that doesn't fix it. It will help in certain respects, but it doesn't help in what is the most common problem. So, and Terrell Fixes All did this, and he said the same thing. It's snake oil. But why spend the money on it and thinking that I'm going to rejuvenate my gasoline that's been in my tank for 5 years? No. Find somebody who has a waste oil furnace, burn it in your fire pit if you really wanted to, because at that point the rubbing alcohol or the paint varnish that you now have in your gas tank, that's all it's good for.
I take all my used gas from everything that comes in here and slowly mix it into my tractor that I drive every week.
Yep.
All right, here's one for the brain surgeons. I don't know what the hell the guy's talking about.
Right. So
you had that machine actually.
Yeah.
I thought you finally got rid of it though, didn't you?
Oh, I sold that to a food truck, and I got a lot of comments on that one because the neutral wire was loose. I was getting like 180 volts on one side and like 80 volts on the other, and it was because of a loose neutral because of the return current. But what a lot of people are trying to do, and he's not the first one to ask this, they're trying to take a remote 2-wire start from an. Oh, okay. So he's got a grid tie inverter. Is that a grid tie inverter?
I don't know, but a lot of inverters will have, when the batteries get low,
they got
it can trigger a generator to start.
So you can't, not the way that it's set up, because a 2-wire means that there's going to be automation on the generator. I mean, you're going to have an automatic choke servo motor that's going to close it and then open it up once the engine gets started. You have to have a delay on for your voltage regulator, so it allows the engine to stabilize. There's no retrofit kit out there, at least that I'm not aware of, that can do that on that particular 27 horsepower V twin. I've seen guys, ask the question. It's probably doable, but there's nothing out of the box. I can tell you that right now.
Okie doke. Let's see. Hey, Arch is on. Hello, Arch. Our buddy Arch and
Wayne was asking something. I don't know if we missed it, but so S&G, a new channel beyond bass guitars. Yeah, so it's not really new. It's actually my wife and I's home business. So S&G, Sue and Gary. That's our small engine repair, and we also do pet services. So we are on the internet there. But long story short, I'm trying to think of more content to put on that channel, because like the bass guitars one, I've been doing a lot of bass guitars, but I still always be involved in small engine to some degree. But it's tough. Like Musty, and then Double Wide Six, for example, he's got a dichotomous channel where he's always doing DIY projects. But the search engines have a hard time of pointing over to channels like that, because are you a small engine? Are you doing audio gear? It's kind of hard to do that. So that's what I'm trying to do, is move some of the more of the small engine stuff to that channel that is more relevant. But on the big projects, I'll definitely be on my main channel here. So I just wanted to answer that.
All right, let's see. What's Wayne saying? Old gas sometimes won't. Yeah, sometimes it won't even burn.
Yep, and it won't burn in your engine.
I had some tonight. It was a little bit yellow orangish, but it didn't smell too bad. Didn't have the varnish smell yet, so I threw it in.
I had one recently that was filled with kerosene.
Ooh. Really?
Yeah.
I did that in my 55 Chevy one time, where a guy had instead of having the blue or yellow, whatever the can is for kerosene, he had it in a regular red gas can, and I'm putting in and I had like half a tank of regular fuel, and all of a sudden smoking like a bitch. And I'm like, what the hell? And it smelled like my furnace. And I was like, oh, there you go. So, but old small block Chevy, that could almost run on piss if it had enough octane. Oh, yeah, with 70 watching. Wow, that's probably a record for me. That's interesting. But anyway, I'm trying to think. It's just, how's the heat and rain been affecting you guys as far as doing work?
I got an air conditioning in my garage.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I don't have that, unfortunately. And the worst thing is, I have kids' toys. Like, I have 3 kids. Garage is always full of toys. So like when I work, I have to push them outside. So if it's raining out, I don't push them outside. I just go to bed. So this week I finally just grabbed a tarp, pushed all that crap outside, and put a tarp over everything. I'm like, I got to get some work done.
Here you go. How do you unbond the neutral on a Generac Ultrasource 17.5?
I haven't seen that machine before.
Yeah, I haven't gone looking either. It's either
bonded,
Generacs, though.
Those 2 places.
The Generacs, though, usually don't have a wire block down there. At least not those models. Don't they run the wires up to the control panel?
Yeah,
so it's likely in there somewhere.
There's a terminal block usually, but it's usually in 2 places, either in the end bell, at that terminal block, or sometimes on the lower wattage ones, they'll put it as a jumper wire on the outlet. But it might be in the panel. You'd have to look for.
Explain bonded to the idiots like me.
James, you want to do that one?
Sure. It's just the neutral and the ground are connected together. Okay. So the idea behind it, when you're running a portable generator, you want to have a path for the current to flow. So if the live wire touches the frame, it'll flow not only on the frame, but it will flow onto neutral. It'll overcurrent the circuit and trip it.
What about when you see
your house? You don't want
on the side of the frame, though? When you see on a generator a stud with the ground marked, does that mean you have to put a rod in the ground and ground it? I mean, what's that for?
I mean, that is what it's for. I don't think many people do that. And if you plug it into your house, then it is essentially grounded to the earth. Okay. But if you're running it as a portable generator, then a lot of code says you do have to do that, but I don't do it. Yeah. I don't think anyone does it.
The whole idea is splitting the current between, you don't want, in the case of a ground fault, so if something shorts to the frame or shorts to earth, you want that current to go back to the source and trip the breaker. But when you say you have a device that faults to ground and you have a bonded generator connected to a bonded panel, well, now that current's going to split in half. So then if you were to happen to touch the frame during a fault, it's going to go through your hand, through your body down to earth, because it's looking for the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
That's why for a lot of areas for code, if the inspectors will catch it, is they want you to, there should only be one place at the point of disconnect to have that neutral ground and bond right there. If you have two, that's why they say disconnect it at the generator, so that the bond stays at your main disconnect in your house, which is at your main panel.
Well, it's the same too if you have any other remote panels off of your main box. By default, it's probably bonded. You know, if you just buy it from the store, install a sub panel, you have to break that bond. You only want one.
Correct.
In your system.
Yep.
Yeah, well, I said one side's of grounds and the other side's of neutrals, right? Basically.
Right.
Yeah.
On the main box?
No, on the remote. Like I have my little sub
machine.
Yeah, sub panels do not have their neutral and ground bars bonded, only at the main panel. So a sub panel will have them separated. If you connect your generator to a sub panel, for example, and now we're getting into code, you know, as far as I know, you still want it unbonded, because again, the fault current needs to go back to your house ground rod. There's some, I mean, when I've done a standby install over at my uncle's many years ago, and the only thing the inspector wanted was he wanted an 8-foot ground rod at the generator as well as at the house. Obviously, it already had one, but it was just, they were so close together that, you know, distance-wise, it didn't really make a difference. But
hey, what's the thing now? I know in my town, you can't use your water pipes anymore. Inside the house, we used to be able to ground to the water pipe.
Yeah.
Going into the ground as one ground. You have to have one outside, an 8-foot rod. But then they always wanted to have a secondary on your water pipe inside.
Well, it's going to be, again, it has to be bonded at one place. Usually you don't want to be connecting outlets to your pipe, even though it's got a reference to ground. Say, and it's really, my opinion, I think it's because of the advent of PEX, like plastic piping.
Oh, okay.
If you go and you did, like, from your water meter, which is where the bond is going to happen, and the rest of your pipes are copper, well, everything's bonded together. Say, for example, somewhere in your house, you had to put a piece of PEX in. Well, you put a piece of PEX in, but if the old outlets were bonded to the pipe as an earth ground, and you're running something through that, well, that's now a floating ground. That's a potentially dangerous scenario. So that's why they don't want you to do it.
Yeah, I remember when I had my 200 amp service put in, we had Central Air, so 30 years ago. He said, nope, can't use this wire going to your water pipe, even though it's all copper in the house. He said, code says I got to have at least one. Actually, they want two outside.
Yeah.
And,
CNC. Yeah. There you go. Ground, lightning straights. Excellent. There you go.
Yeah, I got a friend of mine's got the lightning arresters on his old house.
Yeah. So these kinds of questions in this line of discussion, you know, someone with E1 certification is far better qualified to answer that than us.
I got two of them that work for me. Well, actually, now one retired. I got one that works for me. He's an E1. Oh boy, let's see what time we got here. Coming up on an hour. You guys still want to go on for a little bit or no? If we have any action.
I'm game. If there's questions.
Yeah, if there's questions, sure.
Any more questions? Bless you. What do you got here? Arch pipes. That's true too. Yeah, rusty pipes.
Electrolysis. They rust.
Well, there is money to be made, but like Gary was saying, hurricane season's coming up here in New England. So, you know, we'll be selling the things. Actually, I'm getting a lot of requests for me to get ones non-running working because
people are thinking about it.
September 10th is the peak of Atlantic hurricane season.
Storms are good for generator sales, but generators are like snowblowers. If it's not snowing, people don't want to buy them.
Yeah,
they don't use them. They don't think about them. But if you get a storm, if you have 100 generators, you'll sell 100 generators in a day.
Jim is in a state of euphoria. Let's see what we got.
We're all with it. Each of us are like within 40 minutes of each other. I live at the midpoint.
Let's just say we're in
those two.
Tri-state area. There you go.
Yeah.
go-kart. Yeah, you got a lot of go-kart built. How many you still got the 2, Jim, or how many you got?
I've got 3.
Oh, 3. Okay.
Which is too many. So
well, one for each kid,
right? Sure. Yeah.
Let's see. You got a perfect yard too. You got that whole bottom thing. You can trek back and forth.
Yeah, you got a good sized yard.
Yeah.
It's good, but we also have a big hill in the yard. So one of my kids, for some reason, always heads straight for the hill, and he's going to roll it on that hill. So I got to pay attention to at least one of them.
I'm glad that we have a flat surface. Having a hill is not easy.
That's a biggie. 22K.
Yep, probably I'm running on propane. Yeah.
One of my guys I work with put one in with natural gas, self-done, all that stuff. Man.
Yep.
He just retired. He says, I don't want to have to worry about it ever again.
Yeah.
It wasn't bad. I think it was 10 grand for everything, including the trenches and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I see a lot more commercials too for the whole house generators and stuff, but usually it's the bigger houses, with all the electrical requirements.
You can afford them. They're like 15 grand and up.
Yeah, they're not cheap.
They're not cheap.
My wife wants one, but I won't do it. It's one of those things. If we ever move, you just leave it. I'm like, no.
I can just hear your wife. But you're Mr. Generator.
I know.
You got to live up to the reputation.
The one I use is only 5,500 watts, and you know what? I can do everything I need to do.
Oh,
maybe not all at once.
I would say you wouldn't have enough to power all of Gary's fridges.
I've got 2 freezers and a fridge. It powers that just fine.
Yeah. Most of them have scroll compressors now.
Ooh, big propane tanks. There you go.
16,000 kilowatts.
Wow.
16,000 watts of solar panels. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Such a huge scam up here where we live, but
definitely. Every week they call me because my house gets full sun front and back all day.
Yep. Same here with my house, and I'm telling you, these guys are slimy snakes.
Bit low on power. Yeah, just the AVR maybe, depending.
If it has an AVR, check the engine speed.
Yep.
If it's a capacitor, then the capacitor might be getting weak.
Yep. If it's drying out. Yep. They dry out over time, the substrate inside.
And there's that one guy on eBay who rips everybody off by selling them for $60, $70. Do you find? Yeah, but Jim, didn't you find a local place that had caps?
You just go to an HVAC place. Yeah, there was. Yeah,
I think I spent like
sell them to you
one time, and you were saying they're like $30.
They'll sell them to you.
They did. You can also go to an electric motor shop. I've been there as well.
That's where I usually get mine, or get it on.
I don't know about you guys, but the electric motor shops that I've been in my area are the filthiest places.
They are.
Oh yeah, The place I went to, it's been there. It's been open for 100 years, and the building hasn't been updated since.
Yeah.
It's ancient.
You walk out of there, you got carbon and everything else all over you.
The HVAC supply houses around here won't sell them to you unless you're a technician or a licensed contractor.
Huh. No, I was able to buy one
because if you don't, it's a liability for them. But it's stupid because if you can buy it as a regular residential homeowner online, then what's the difference?
Exactly.
You're taking your own life in your hands when you work on that stuff anyway.
It's just, is it liability, or is they just want the business? They want, I don't know.
Arch did his last video on the vertical power mate, the vertical engine with the generator that hangs underneath it.
Yeah.
Yep.
His was more cleaning up the slip rings and the connections because his was a little low on power. You could see the light was flickering and all that. He just did a clean on everything. So let's see. Solar. He's pushing the solar, CNC.
Yeah, and I'm sure he understands. Like, there's so much. To me, like I said, solar to us up here is a scam, because they want to rent your space and on your roof and my wife would never ever have solar panels. We just had our roof replaced and that was expensive enough. But if the solar was ever less expensive and more affordable, where you can actually store the power as credits, it's just not worth it here in Connecticut where we live. Connecticut's a complete scam when it comes to that. So.
Probably cheaper just to buy a stator, no, than have a. What's it in though, Tom? What's it actually in?
Oh, cost effective.
No.
I mean, if your time isn't, if you got a lot of time, then maybe. But
Yep.
good luck finding
You won't
and
find
teaching
specs.
yourself that. It's the
Yep.
specs.
Yep.
It's the trying to reverse engineer.
You gotta have
Always
the
done,
right
but
size and lacquered wire and the
yeah,
exact length.
How many turns? What's the
yeah.
pitch? What is the thickness of the wire? It's and the resistance that you're looking for.
yeah,
Those are usually not available, and it's not worth it. Yeah, they're going to charge you an arm and a leg for a new one. Yeah.
they are. That's why you buy a generator with a blown up engine for $100 that has a good stator. You know, that's the only way to get them. I shouldn't say the only way. The Ryobi was selling some dirt cheap for a while. You know, I could buy a rotor. Actually, the one that's on that machine now was $80. Stator 120, and that's worth it. I mean, it's not worth doing the work yourself when you can buy it for $200. But you can't usually. You know, if you were to buy a Generac generator, it'd be $800.
What's he saying here? He only runs it at 50%. Is that good or bad though?
I mean, yeah. I mean, the higher you go, I mean, I get what he's saying. I mean, it's
Yeah,
at some point because a gas engine is not 100% efficient. They're probably only somewhere around 25% if they're lucky. The rest of it is going to be wasted as heat. All the mechanical all the losses that you're going to get. I mean, if I would still want to, if I had to, I mean, to be able to run it at full power, you wouldn't want to run it at full power all the time.
Yeah.
But there's guys, like I said, there's guys down in Texas that do, and they're perfectly fine with it.
Oh, I had a customer. He ran this for 5 days straight and never shut it off with like 4 gas tanks on it, and
that's what the guys do. And sure, I mean, as long as you're changing the oil every 25 to 50 hours, well, 25 if it's air cooled, but air cooled and splash lubrication, not full pressure lubrication. But I've seen guys, they're refueling as it's running. I mean, to them, central air down there is mission critical.
yeah.
Jim, on that Champion, though, was that Champion that wasn't gouged out in the cylinder at all?
No, it's definitely rebuildable. I just need probably a new head, new valves, new piston, new connecting rod, new rings, new what else? Circlips, new head gasket. But actually, a Champion dealer reached out to me today, and he's looking into it. He's looking to see if he can get the parts, and if so, he'll get them at the dealer price.
Nice.
And potentially, there might be a video. You know, if he's
shown as NLA, or is it just nobody has them?
When I looked, some of the parts were available and some of them were not.
Yeah.
So it didn't say that they were discontinued, but it's one of those things you could order it and wait half a year, and maybe it'll show up, or maybe it never will. So
they keep them in stock in California. That's where their main warehouse is, and Furman is located in Arizona. So a lot of times, if you order them there, if they don't have them there, they have to get it from their China facility, and that takes anywhere from 30 to 45 days if it's on the water. They won't air freight any of that stuff.
Right, but if they can get it, I'll rebuild it. I was a little disappointed that the Honda fell short. You know, that Honda actually came from a generator. That Honda is an old Honda GX390. It's probably one of the original.
Yellow one?
Yeah, the yellow one. It's an old one, and it was on a contractor's generator, so it probably has thousands of hours on it. So it's definitely down a little bit on horsepower. You know, it should have been able to do. A new one would have done 7,000 watts.
How many horsepower?
13.
13.
And how much was it supposed to do?
Honda's GX390s, I see them on generators that are being advertised at 7,000 watts.
2 horsepower.
I've never tested one.
Yeah.
So I can't say, but at 6,500 watts, I thought for sure it should do.
Nope. What did you say here? 2 per 1,000?
It's 2 horsepower for every 1,000 watts under load because of mechanical losses. So a GX390, I had a Black Max generator that did that, and I could not get more than 6,000 watts, even though it was advertised as a 7,000. So
interesting.
They're basically these companies are lying to you. That's the stinky part about it.
Well, that's just it, and that's the first GX390 I tried loading to 6,500 watts, but that's a 13-horse engine, 500 watts per horse. It should have made it to 6,500, but it didn't. So I don't know what to think about that.
Maybe they're lying on the.
But on propane, it ran at 6,000. On gasoline, it ran at 6,000. So something on the carburation side, I think,
or the head
was a
or the
little off.
displacement.
Yeah.
You know, could be just the porting. I had the same. I feel vindicated by you telling me that because
Me too.
that's exactly what happened with that Black Max generator. Great machine. You know,
Yeah.
it's with the Honda engine, but I just could not get more than 6,000. It would just stumble and fall.
All right, that makes me feel better because, yeah, 6,000, that was it. Like
That was it. It
even at
hardline.
6,000, it was unstable. Like you could tell the slightest little hiccup and it was just going to fall right on its face.
Correct. Yep. Nope. That's just how they are. I mean, again, very well built motor. It's just, I think they overrated the horsepower on that.
So, what do you guys recommend for generator oil?
Just any full after it's been broken in after 5 hours. You know, using conventional oil. I just use the full synthetic. Normally it's 10W30, but sometimes depending on the engine, they may recommend, a different one. They may recommend straight 30 if it's in the summer, or 5W30 if it's in the operating in the winter. 1030 is a multi-weight, so it's going to have those different viscosities at that entire temperature range.
Yeah,
so
definitely
use full synthetic
after the break-in, but it depends really on where you live too. Like if you live down south, then 1030 may not be the best choice. You might want 30 or something a little bit thicker.
Yep.
You know, where we are, if you use 30 weight, then you probably can't start the engine half the year because it's too cold.
Well, look at Kawasaki now recommending straight 40 on a lot of their stuff.
Yep.
That's, well, for summer equipment, sure.
Yeah, and then don't forget the elevation, sea level too. If you live in a high elevation, they actually will provide you kits to change the jetting of the carburetor because of the air pressure.
Yep, you got to lean it out.
Yep, you got to lean it out.
You're going to lose horsepower too, but at least it'll run.
Yep, exactly. So that's drilling out the main jet it's a double-edged sword when it comes to that.
Yeah. So I don't recommend any particular brand either. I just whatever I can get at Home Depot, but there's plenty of good ones out there too if you go to an auto store.
I like the new the new Pennzoil with the natural gas base. It seems to stay cleaner longer than other ones, so I've been using that in the cars and my small engines lately.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, it's a natural gas derivative instead of petroleum based, and it's almost clear. Doesn't have much of a yellow tinge to it, and it's staying cleaner and lighter longer. It seems to be.
All right, I use Pennzoil 30 weight, but I think it's just the standard stuff.
Yeah, this is the what do they call it, Ultra or something like that. It's their high tech one, but it's I like it.
Yeah,
and Wally World, you get $25 for 5 quarts. Not bad.
Yeah, the Pennzoil full synthetic is what I use, but then for most of the engines, as far as break-in, just using the cheap STP stuff.
Yeah.
What's this? Oh, surging Mconies.
Oh boy.
Still about the Subaru bent wing.
Slight blockage. Well, if the exhaust is restricted, actually it would run richer, I think. It's when the exhaust can breathe, you actually need to increase the jetting, more fuel. So if you were to partially block the exhaust, the surging might go away. I actually had that on a machine where it ran great, and then I discovered the exhaust was plugged. It was actually a Honda. So I cleared the exhaust, and then it started surging the next time I started it because the engine could actually breathe.
Yeah, that's what I get, the Platinum. It's called Pennzoil Platinum Ultra. Yep. I haven't looked at my phone in a while, William. I'll do it after this. Anyway. All right, I'm getting a little tired here. I think I'm going to hit it. You guys ready to say see ya or what?
Yeah, if there's no more questions.
It's getting late. All right, thanks to everybody who watched. Of course, thanks to Jim and Gary for joining us here. If you guys do have any questions out there, put them in the comments of this video, because the three of us, we will look at the comments. So if you have a question or you're watching this at a later time and date, just put a question in. And generally, if I see it, I'll email these two guys and vice versa, and we're always talking. So between us, we should be able to get you an answer if we have one. So, all right. Thanks again, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.
See you guys.
See ya.